Moldaian dynasty. The Moldaian dynasty. Okay. Good evening, people. So, my name is Mr. Johnny Lopez. I'm here today as a guy that wants to be a visual artist in my career job for the future of my college. Today we're going to be reading a special philosophy, an interesting and most electrifying philosophy by one particular philosopher. It's a guy that's a special philosopher, one who is into art reading, an archaeological museum way of thinking. He is ready to study the most electrifying human history that's been around for almost a good thousands of years, millions of years, in mankind, in human. So here we are. Our topic today, the visual arts, history art, ancient art, Persia, the 6th century of BC to the 7 BC AD, of a region, traditionally known as Persian, is now called Iran. The term ancient Persia is used before the period before the element of Islam in the 7th century AD. The high politude of Iran was seen the development of many cultures, which add their distinctive features to many styles of Persian art and architecture. Early works, although early civilizations were known, the first archaeological finds in the artistic importance are the superb ceramics of Susa and Persepolis, c. 3500 BC. The choice of biological subjects simplified onto patterns and may call the formative principle of the Persian art. Much of the 4 million Iranian art is strongly influenced by that of Mesopotamia, and the 3D amalgam art of Alimam found at Sulig and Suwa also follows the Mesopotamian styles. This trend is continued in the West, known Alam and Oridu art of the 2D millennium, beginning at the end, to the second millennium, to the middle of the first millennium, and great fluorescence of bronze. Casting occurred along the southern countryside mountain zone in the mountains. The lowest star, probably dated 1200 to 700 BC. Hornless droppings, mouse bits, axes, and vaulted objects were made in large quantities and reflect of the complex star created by buying parts of the animals and fantastic futures of the following forms. Armenian period 550 to 330 BC, and the unified style emerges. Author's works of the detective art of were produced. The element avoid a millimeter style in which relief sculpture is used as the attitude to master architecture. Columbiensis remains in the great places, reveals plans that characteristically show great command. Adolius holds the style as the whole of the filling of space and scale were distinguished. In the sculpture is known, entered the ordered clarity and simplicity. Heraldic stylization is stability combined with the effects of realism. Tropical are in the low stone reliefs and friezes in execute in molded and analyzable break, and the technique of Babylonian and Assyrian origin. The great care in Lordish and every stone detail is also found in the gold and silver ornaments, drinking horns, gold, jewelry, and other objects produced by this culture.
The Persian New Year, which always falls on the vernal or spring equinox, is a holiday that's celebrated by people of many different ethnicities, nationalities, and religions. However, it's an especially important holiday for those in the Persian and Kurdish world. Both of these latter two groups share a great deal in common, including an ancestry that goes back thousands of years. The majority of modern Iranians identify themselves as being ethnically Persian, and by extension the descendants of the ancient Persian people who ruled several empires, starting with Cyrus the Great in the 550s BCE. Most modern Kurds claim to be the ancestors of the ancient people known as the Medes. In honor of Nowruz, which is important to both, I wanted to show you how related these peoples were, even in ancient times. We'll take a quick look at the stories of three notable kings who, without, the histories of both the Persians and the Kurds may have been very different. Between the 9th and 7th centuries BCE, the undisputed power in the ancient Near East was the expansionist Assyrian Empire. It was moving in all directions of the compass. To its west were the Zagros Mountains, and it was here that the Assyrians during the reign of Shalmaneser III first recorded encounters with tribes of people known as the Medes. As expected, the Assyrians sought to control the region, and eventually armed conflicts broke out between the two. The Medes, who mostly fought on horseback, were an extremely tough adversary for the Assyrians. After a few decades, the two sides more or less reached an agreement, whereby the Median tribes were able to keep a sort of quasi-independence as long as they served the Assyrians as vassals and provided tribute. Still, with all of the resources at the disposal of the Assyrian Empire, it would only be a matter of time until they completely subjugated the territories occupied by the Medes. It's in this environment that the Median leader, Deioces, whose old Iranian name is Diuka, came to the fore. The only information we have about him comes from Herodotus, who writes that he was a shrewd man known for both his wisdom as well as his ability to arbitrate disputes. Recognizing that the Medes as a people were doomed unless they united together, Deioces, according to Herodotus, formed the first Median kingdom and had the settlement of Ecbatana fortified to serve as its capital. Unfortunately, Herodotus is our only source for Deioces, likely relied on oral traditions that he heard while traveling throughout the Persian Empire, 5th century BCE. Scholars, though, have found Assyrian texts from the 8th century BCE that do mention a certain Diuk. But whether or not this is the same person as Herodotus' Deioces can't be determined. The next great king of Media was Sayaxares, whose real name in Old Persian is Uvakshatra. He's also mentioned in Herodotus' writings, but in addition to this, we also have Babylonian chronicles that verify his identity. He took the kingdom that his grandfather, Deioces, founded and turned it into an empire. After the death of Assyria's powerful king, Ashurbanipal, in 627 BCE, the Assyrian Empire fell into a civil war between rival claimants to the throne, which prompted many of Assyria's subjects to take advantage of the chaos and declare their independence. This included the Babylonians and Medes. The Babylonians, under their new king, who was a Chaldean named Nabopolassar, wasted no time. In 615 BCE, he marched against the great Assyrian city of Ashur, but ultimately was unable to take it. He knew that in order to definitively defeat the Assyrians once and for all, he needed to ally with others who hated them as much as he did. For this, he found no better partner than Sayaxares. Like Nabopolassar, Sayaxares had also recently kicked out any vestiges of Assyrian rule from his own land, and was willing to go the distance to make sure that Media would never be threatened again. At first, the two worked independently. The Medes had to first deal with hostile Scythians, after which they marched into the Assyrian heartland, capturing many cities and towns along the way. Sometime in 614 or late 613 BCE, the Medes captured the holy Assyrian city of Ashur, which for at least 1,500 years had been their primary religious and cultural center. They plundered as much as they could from Ashur and destroyed its temples before razing the entire city to the ground. Soon afterward, the main Babylonian army arrived outside the now ruined city of Ashur, where Sayaxares and Nabopolassar met in person to officially form an alliance. The two of them then marched north up the Tigris River to the Assyrian capital of Nineveh, which in those days was probably the most magnificent city in the world. After a 3-month siege, it too suffered the same fate as Ashur against the combined forces of the Medes and the Babylonians. Though remnants of the Assyrian Empire still fought on in the west, for all practical purposes, their state was finished. Sayaxares and Nabopolassar divided up the territories of the Assyrian Empire among themselves, whereby the Medes took much of the land to the north, including what was once the kingdom of Urartu, today in modern Armenia. In these latter areas, Sayaxares came in contact with the kingdom of Lydia, and from 590 to 585 BCE, the two fought against each other, though neither side could claim victory. After 5 years of fighting, the Medes and the Lydians made peace, and Sayaxares' son, Astyages, married one of the daughters of the Lydian king. Remember that name, Astyages. Alright, you knew that this king was going to be on the list, and not just because we shared the same name. Actually, his name in Old Persian is Kurush. Cyrus is what the Greeks called him, and since it's the name most people are familiar with, I'll use it here. His father was the Persian king, Cambyses I, while his mother was a Median princess named Mandani. Mandani's father, who was Cyrus's grandfather, was the Median king Astyages. There are many stories of Cyrus's birth and upbringing, most, if not all of which I'll discuss in other episodes. However, it's believed that around 559 BCE, when Cyrus was perhaps 40 years of age, he ascended the throne of Persia. At that time, the Persians were vassals of the Medes and ruled from the city of Antioch, the same city that had for centuries, not millennia before, been one of the great centers of Elamite culture and learning. By this time, though, it was ruled by Persian. The sources that we have imply that Astyages was not a very popular ruler. Cyrus, on the other hand, is very popular and known for his wisdom. There are several versions of what happened between them, but the most popular one, on both Babylonian chronicles and more or less reiterated by Herodotus, is that in 554 or 556, Astyages felt threatened by Cyrus and marched on Persia. His own army defected over to Cyrus' side, making him their king. This actually made him the ruler of both the Persians and the Medes. Totally legit, because he was a member of both royal houses. This, however, alarmed the other kingdoms in the region, especially those of Lydia and Babylon. Their alliances had been with Astyages and his Median predecessors. To them, this upstart Persian king Cyrus was a usurper. So, they went to war with Persia. Both, however, were defeated. First Lydia and its king Croesus, then Babylon and its king Nabonidus. In both of these instances, Cyrus treated his defeated enemies with mercy and even appointed them to high positions within his government. In fact, Cyrus introduced a rather novel concept of kingship that emphasized rule based on benevolence, persuasion, and respect for the cultural and religious values of the various peoples he had conquered. He also didn't allow his soldiers to plunder the cities that he acquired, something that was generally a given to ancient warfare. Some argue that this was simply a practical strategy for ruling over such a large swath of territory with a diverse population. Even if this was the case, the fact is that Cyrus's style of rule and leadership was different than that of nearly every other great conqueror who had come before him. And this, to be honest, is not what only separated him from most of the other kings of the past, but also set the precedent of tolerance that many, though not all, Persian kings would follow in the future. I think that's really the real reason why he's called Cyrus the Great. In the end, most historians agree that Cyrus died a warrior's death on the battlefield against nomadic tribes on the periphery of the empire, most likely the areas that make up the modern nations of Turkmenistan or the southern part of Uzbekistan. So, these are just three ancient kings who were important in shaping the common history of both the Persians and the Medes. We'll talk more about these and other kings in future programs, especially in a podcast episodes that I have lined up for you. Stay tuned. Once again, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. If you learned something or just enjoyed the video, please don't hesitate to smash that like button. Also, consider subscribing if you haven't already. You can also check out History with Cy on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and find more great content on the podcast. Thanks again, stay safe, and see you in the next episode.
Right, the visual arts of Iran. The arts of Iran. The arts of Iran is the richest heritage of the world history. In our common passage with many traditional disciplines, including architecture, painting, literature, music, leather, pottery, calligraphy, metalworking, and stone masonry. There is also very vibrant Iran modern and contemporary art scene, as well as cinema and photography. For the history of the Persian visual art up to 20th century, see Persian art. Also, Iran architecture. visual arts, the one I'm gonna be studying in my future. What it's telling is they are very artistic in that country. Back in the day, back in many years ago, in ancient times. And Qajar dynasty. We can read it, shall we? The Qajar dynasty was a random royal dynasty of the Turkic region, specifically from the Qajar tribe. Ruling in the Iran from 1789 to 1925, the Qajar royal family took in control of Iran in 1794. The supposedly Pope Ali Khan and last shot of the Sad dynasty and reset Iran society over large parts of the Caucasus. In 1796, Muhammad Khan Qajar seized Mashhad with raids, putting an end to the Hoshar dynasty. Muhammad Khan was formally crowned the Shah after his punitive companion against Iran's Georgian subjects in the Khoas Pass. Qajar's dynasty primarily ruled many of Iran's ritual areas in territorial areas to the Russian. Over the course of the 19th century, comprising modern-day Georgia, Dagestan, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. The Persian rug from the yarn fiber to the colors. Every part of the Persian rug, traditionally handmade from a natural ingredients over the course of many months. The art of the rug weave is in as its roots into culture. Custom. These people and their interior feelings. Weavers mix element patterns of a myriad of colors. The Iran carpet is similar to Persian garden, with full furrowed birds and bees. The colors usually made in wildflowers, and the rich of colors which as burgundy, navy blue, and offsets of iron. The purple fabric is washed in tea and softened the texture, giving it to a unique quality. Depending where the rug is made, patterns and design vary. Some rugs such as draped, glimming further have varieties in their textures. The number of thought knots as well. Not of about 2 million runs who worked in Detroit. 1.2 million are weavers, producing the largest amount of hand-woven artistic carpets in the world. Exported $517 million worth carpets in 2002. The expressional craftsmanship in weaving the carpets and succulent textile dust caught in attention as the likes of Xuanzang, Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, and Jean Chardin, painting and mixture. Millions of the royal presence. The painting style is markedly Krujari. Manchester historian Basil Groy believes Iran Persia has a unique art of the world which is excellent and its own kind. The caves in Iran, Liechtenstein, they both visit the exhibit painting imagery of the animals, hunting, sea. Some ants, those are false sardines, and solik are eaten at least 5,000 years old. Painting in Iran is thought to have reached a climax during the Tamerlane era, when outstanding masters such as Khalid Behzad gave birth to his new style of painting. Paintings of the Qajar period are a combination of European influences and survey mixture schools of painting such as those influence the Rezari Absabi. Masters such as Karl Old Monk pushed forward to the European influence in Iran. It was during the Qajar era when coffee house painting emerged. Subjects of this style were often religious in the nature. The picking scenes of Sinai epics in the like pottery and cymatics. These are visual arts painting. The ghosts in the vests, the vests. In the visual arts museums and archaeological museums. That's very artistic. It's very hard to come by. It's very artistic. A lot of hard work. These paintings in the museums, they made it so many years. It's thousands of years old. All these sculptures. So the pottery vessel form was made back then, BC, the millennium BC. Pottery vessel 4th millennium BC in the Silic collection of Tehran's National Museum of Iran. Archaeologist as well. His archaeologist's name is Roman Garshiman. Roman archaeologist Roman Garshiman believes that the taste of his talent of this people, Iranians, can be seen through designs of their earthen wares. Of the thousands of archaeological sites and historical ruins of Iran, almost very single one can be found to have been filled at the same point with earthware of expoliable quality. Thousands of unique vessels of learn are found in Sully and Juffer sites. The exploration of the potter Kusajar has the special place in Persian literature and music. During the course of Iran's recorded history and the unique definitive music that developed and combined by the enormous musical instrument, several of which came to be the first prototypes of some modern musical instruments of today. The earliest references of the musicians in Iran were found in Surah and Elamam in the 3rd millennium BC reliefs, sculptures, and mosaics such as those Bershipar from periods of antiquity. The depict in the vibrant musical culture. Persian music in its comparatory form has its inception in the Nasri era, who ordered the opening of the House of Crafts, where all the master craftsmen were gathered together for designing instruments and practicing their art. So, guys, I appreciate your honest behavior of watching the video today. I'll see you in the next video of one of my archaeology, history, documentary shows. This one was about visual arts. So I appreciate you watching my video today, and we'll see you on the next one. Good night, everybody. From Johnny Nobi's History Archaeology.